Wonderful. So, thank you all for joining in. Okay, is my screen? I mean, can you see my screen? Is it
Yes, I can.
is it full tilt?
Perfect. Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Great. So, once again, thank you all for joining in. I know there is a parallel session going on done by Kathy, who's a veteran in the space, but you've chosen to be here to an introduction to SFBT. And I'm sure uh, anyone who here who is new to SF itself, um, did I
No,
do the presentation?
no, not me.
Okay, I just lost the presentation just a moment.
That's good.
I think I got to reshare it. I went out.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah,
Nice, Kathy. Kathy's got a beginner's mind. Always learning, eh?
right. Okay. Oh, why am I not able to see the presentation? What am I doing wrong? Hmm. Okay, great. So I guess all here understand and know what SF is. Your practitioners in your counseling practice, in your psychotherapy practice. So thank you for being here, right? Um, and I know the next 55 minutes I will try my best to make this as engaging and interesting as possible. Feel free to jump in. But once again, thank you. So what we will discuss today is not necessarily what SFBT is, what solution focused brief therapy is, but the mindset that a clinician needs to go into every session with, the mindset that the clinician needs to have when they are using SFBT in their counseling practice, vis-a-vis what a clinician might have when they are practicing something else, some other modality like CBT, right? The shift in the mindset about themselves, about the client, most importantly, and the process. So we will go through the steps or techniques of SFBT itself, where we start with best hopes and then we go through the resources and preferred future and then end, but with uh, the common focus being on the mindset that a clinician needs to be successful or to make an impactful change in a client's life, right? And facilitate. And I think the very beginning, the very first change in mindset is that we are facilitators. I've always maintained this. My mentors, my gurus have always mentioned this, that we are facilitators of change, and the client is the expert of their life, and we will see that as we go down in the next 55 minutes. So I think this is where the shift starts, right? Every conversation, every client conversation, as the client comes into the therapy room or Zoom room, Teams room today, after one good thing that has happened after COVID, is that they come in and we start by asking them what their best hopes are. And it is absolutely important. If today, after this presentation, if you have not taken away anything else, I want you to take this away, that we need to. It is an absolute need. We need to believe in our board that our client knows what they want, what they need, and they are absolutely capable of that change. And that is the presupposing thought, mindset that as clinicians we need to have, and that starts from the very first question that we ask in our session: what are your best hopes? Because we are not asking what brings you in, and invariably the client is going to still tell us what brings them in. They're going to tell us the problem, but for us it is important that we start with the best hope, absolutely believing in our client. as we discuss today, as we interact today, we are going to talk about the difference between believing our clients and believing in our clients. It's a very subtle difference. We don't have to necessarily believe all that our client says. Client will come in and say, I'm a waster. We are not going to believe that, but we will believe in the client and ask them, okay, what would you like instead? And when were the times you you had your desired outcome present? We will discuss that as we go down. But as I mentioned, best hopes is where we start, right? And we start because we are presupposing that the client wants change and they are capable of bringing in change. Now, they might not have a ready-made answer. Most clients, when they come in, they either when I ask what are your best hopes from our talking, unless they are prepared. I recently had a client couple, but I'm seeing them separately, the husband and wife. They knew that I was going to start this way, and so they had that answer. They told me what the best hopes were. But in most cases, it's either going to be I don't know, or it's going to be the story of the problem. But I don't know, as we all know, I don't know does not mean they don't know. They don't have hope. It just means they have not thought about it. No one has disrupted the pattern of asking them, what are your best hopes? Rather, people have, if they have been to therapy, they have asked, what brings you in, right? And I think the biggest mindset shift here is to understand, especially clinicians, so that we are able to, especially here in India, I have to, when I ask the different questions, I have to tell them, kind of explain to them what the difference is between a goal and an outcome. And we have this very famous, what do you call, famous comparison or example as to you make $1 million, or in Indian rupees are crores, right? You make $1 million, that's the goal. What difference would that $1 million make to you? That's the outcome. What are you trying to achieve once you have made the $1 million, those $1 million? And I think the biggest mindset shift that clinicians got to have is to understand the difference between goal and an outcome. I still see clinicians or psychologists, even if they kind of know SF, they still talk about it being a goal-oriented approach. And I'm like, no, it's not a goal-oriented approach. It's an outcome-oriented approach. It's a difference-oriented approach. And I think that mindset is what we as clinicians need to start with so that we are able to impart it during the conversation to our client. Now, I've been in a sales role for over 20 years, so it's like second nature to me to ask any questions. So, any questions thus far, or would you like to keep the questions to the end and I can continue? Any questions? Okay. So I think now moving forward in the clinical setup, and no matter and not just in clinical setup, not just as a clinician, we could be corporate trainers, we could be parents, in any role that we any hat that we wear. The faith in the faith is a great ingredient, is I think the most important ingredient in the mindset, in the shift of a mindset of when we use solution focused brief therapy, or we use solution focused therapy, or being just solution focused or outcome focused. And the faith is, especially from a clinician standpoint, the faith in the client, the faith in the self, that is clinician, and the faith in the process. Now, as we have always maintained, or we have always seen, it is important that we understand as clinicians that we are still the experts in the process, right? We typically say that we do not take this expert stance. We take a not knowing stance. We take the curiosity stance. While that is absolutely important, a subtle change in our mindset is that we also need to keep the faith, keep the faith in ourselves and understand that we are still the expert in the clinical process in what SF is, how SF is done. And that comes with clinical confidence, right? And clinical confidence also permeates into the process. Holding forth when the client, when the session is tough, when the client is talking a lot, being able to pick those golden nuggets from all that the client has told us. I once had a client, I think 2 or 3 clients, who I asked them a question and they just go on. And I am someone who finds it tough. In fact, I find it tough when to focus when the client is on a rampage, when the client just goes on for 10 minutes and I have to really listen in keenly to pick up those golden nuggets, those hints of strength and resource in all that chaos that the client has gone through. And that comes from that mindset comes in when you have absolute faith in the process and in ourselves as the clinician, as a therapist, as a counselor. Or most importantly, we got to have faith in our client because the client is still the expert in their life. One of the reasons I believe that we do not really harp on the problem, rather we want to understand what the client wants, what their outcome is, how they would start to notice those outcomes in their life, is because we understand that the client knows what the problem is. They have come in with the problem, they understand the problem, or at least they are living with the problem. They are the experts in their life. And despite that, we also got to understand, we got to believe that they know what they want. And that's the faith that we got to have, that the mindset of faith we have to have, we need to have while we practice SF in our what do you call, in our setup, be it a clinic or an organizations doing workshops, or whether it's in educational institutions, whether when we are talking to students, it's absolutely important when we talk to students. With suicide rates being on the rise, I'm not sure about other countries. I know here in India, suicide rates among students is on the rise because they are absolutely not able to take pressure. But as student counselors, it is important, it is paramount that we have belief in the client, in the student. And one thing I've found difficult, right, in sessions is to maintain silence. It's awkward, what we call is awkward silence. I ask a question and the client is thrown back by the question there because no one has asked them that question and they take like 5 minutes. It's absolute silence. And being comfortable in that silence is also the faith in self. That is part of the self, and being faithful, they're having that faith in the process, in the client. And before I go into the levels of difference, what I call the why of the client, as Simon Sinek says, start with why. Before we go in there, again, any questions, thoughts, arguments against? Okay. Either I'm doing a great job or I'm doing a lousy job. But anyway, moving on. So I think this is something that Dr. Adam Frower also harps on a lot, talks about a lot, the levels of difference, the why of the client. So typically we start by asking, what are your best hopes from our talking today, from our conversation, from our working together? And the client says, oh, I want to be confident, right? Let's an example. I want to be confident. I want to I want to be happy. Happy is the easiest example, but or I want peace, I want calm. I want to be able to achieve something, do something, not feel like a failure. Okay, so what would you like to feel instead? And again, that's a mindset, right? Traditional modalities would then harp on that failure. Here in SF, we will talk about the instant what the client wants instead of being not feeling like a failure. Or I want to feel confident, or I want to I want to feel like I can succeed at anything. Wonderful. Then there comes the levels of difference. And as we continue to practice SF, we have seen three levels of difference. That goes deeper and deeper into what the kind of life the client wants. Again, this is a paradigm shift. The major shift in the mindset that the clinician needs to have about the client. And we start by asking, okay, what would you start to notice as you have your desired outcome? What do you call start as the desired outcome starts to seep into your life gradually, slowly, even a wee bit of confidence comes into your life. What difference would you start to notice? That lets you know that confidence is in your life. Confidence is back in your life. Because we have seen that a client rarely or never wants something that they have never had in their life. They want confidence because they have once upon a time had it in their life. They have tasted success. They have tasted confidence. They have tasted peace in their life. And that's why they want it back. Because somewhere along the way, they lost it. Or they didn't know how to bring it back in their life or how to enjoy it. And so we start by asking, what would you start to know different? And that's more action oriented, behavioral impact. Or the client would start to notice in their daily life when they see confidence coming back or happiness coming back or peace coming back into their life. And then there's that second level of difference. So, and when you start to notice that confidence, that happiness coming back into your life, what difference would that make to you as a person? How would your life change? That your quality, as one of my colleagues would put it, the quality of life, the internal state of mind starts to change. And what difference would that make to you? That the presence of the desired outcome, as you start to do things differently, view things differently, think differently, what difference would that make? That's the second level of difference. The why that the client continues, and as clinicians, we continue to to permeate in our sessions with our clients. Because a biggest shift as as I started to practice SF and I continue to practice SF, the biggest shift is that what how we are as the clinician, the therapist, how we are, how we think impacts the client. It's like a vibe, it's like an energy. It passes on. So we got to show them that we believe in them. And our questions are the mode of letting them know that we believe in them. And we are asking them what difference would it make to them to have that present. And as research would have it, we know that as the client talks or even thinks about our question, about the difference it will start to make, as they start to notice those differences, they are living it. Even in the session, they are living it. They are experiencing it. And to let them continue experience it, we got to ask what difference does it make to have your desired outcome in your life. And then comes the I think the deepest level of difference, asking them how and what would that say about you as a person. The version, what we call as version of the client, right? I had a client recently, and for them, calm, being calm for that person, being calm was very important. And I had a couple of sessions with him, and he kept talking about being calm. So I asked him, like, what difference would calm make to you? And he said, yeah, I'll feel confident, and I'll feel I'm being myself, and I'll do what I'm supposed to do, uh, live my life the best way possible, be the best version of myself. And then I asked the client, and when you have that calm and when you are able to be the best version of yourself as you want yourself to be, what would that say? What would that tell you about yourself as a person? And imagine what the client's response was. Anybody? Anybody wants to take a guess what the client's response was?
Could be anything.
I didn't have a response.
They would be more like you.
Thank you. Yeah, the client did not have an answer because
Hmm.
the client had not thought about it that way. And for me in SF sessions, that's the biggest kicker. When a client either thinks or explicitly tells me that, oh, I didn't think of it that way. I had not thought of it that way till you asked me that. Because no one probably has ever asked a person, has asked the client, or this person in this case, what would that tell you about you as a person? The version that you are. And that's the shift that we are looking for. That's the shift the client is looking for. And that will come only if we have that mindset that the client will transform. When the desired outcome is present, when calmness is present, and peace is present, they are transforming themselves. Right? And that comes with the power of presupposition from a clinician standpoint. As Steve Desasher famously said, if you do not ask them about their success stories, the client will not tell you, will not tell us. As a client has come in with a problem that they at that point in time think is bigger than their life. The problem is bigger than themselves. And we got, as clinicians, we got to believe in the client's resources. We are presupposing. Presupposition is, I think, one of the biggest shifts that has happened in SF, right? The mindset of the clinician of presupposing that the client has come in with their resources and they know about their outcome, and they are, even as they step into our room, into therapy for the first time, they are still moving towards their outcome. Probably they are not aware of it. And our job is to ask meaningful questions there so that they realize that they have the tools. They already have the tools, they already have the resources, they have already done it in their life. They have already succeeded in their life in the past. But today they are in a place where the problem has taken over and they are not able to see themselves, see their strength. And it's our job to help them realize that they have already done it with our questions. And how do we do that? We do it because we can do it only when we believe in the client, that the client has the resources. The power of presupposing that the client has strength. And even and they have their outcome, desired outcome present in their life, even despite the problems that they have. In whatever proportion it might be, the outcome, they might still feel calm only maybe 1 hour out of 24 hours in a day, but it's still present there. Probably they feel it only for 5 minutes. But our job as clinicians is to talk about that 5 minutes of those 5 minutes of calm that they had, what was different about them, right? So as I mentioned, change is a continuum, and the client keeps changing. They are changing, they are transforming, and we as clinicians need to have that belief in the client. I'm sure you all understand the difference between believing the client and believing in the client, right? And it is important for us that we continue through the session, every session, to believe in the client. Believe that they have already had a successful past, the desired outcome present in their life. They have done things in their life that was beneficial to them, and it has not just impacted them, but impacted their other significant others in their life. It could be their spouse, partner, parents, kids, colleagues, friends, anybody, even inanimate objects. When the client, we know that when the client is the best version of themselves, with the desired outcome present, even the way they talk to their pets or drive their car or eat their breakfast is different. And that is where we elicit those detailed description of preferred future. As I tell my clients, I've started telling my clients over the past year that the difference isn't the detail isn't the mundane. The details are not in the big things that you do in your life. The details are in the mundane stuff that you do every day, right from getting up in the morning, brushing your teeth, taking your bath, making your breakfast, or having your breakfast. Through the day, that change happens in every mundane detail. Now, where does that statement or question come? It comes from our mindset. It comes from the clinician's mindset that the change, the details are in the mundane. Because if we do not believe in that, if we do not know that, and we are not going to ask that question, we are not going to tell the client, pass on that energy and tell the client or ask the client, hey, where all will you start to notice the difference? Where all will you start? What would you start to notice? What have you noticed? What we call as the legacy question, talking about the past. The biggest mindset shift is when we talk about the past, we are talking about the resources of the client, whereas we know in other modalities, traditional modalities, they talk about the problem being present in the past. But we are talking about how on earth did you get out of that situation that you found yourself in? How on earth did you get past that trauma? Did you live through that trauma? How did you move day to day despite the trauma that happened to you? It could be anything. It could be childhood trauma, parental trauma, it could be sexual trauma, whatever it might be. We are focused on the resilience of the client who lived through it and today is in front of us. And they are in front of us because we know they want change. We know that they are looking for a better tomorrow as they continue to live through their desired outcome. As in India, you might know that cricket is very popular. I'm sure Matt knows. He is a New Zealander. And in one of our earlier past captains would say that anything that does not kill you makes you stronger. And isn't that true with suicidal ideation or suicide trauma? If the client has not committed suicide, he is still alive and is sitting in front of us, it means they still have hope. As the tagline of my practice says, change begins with hope. They have hope. And we as clinicians need to believe that the client has hope for change. And it continuously happening. Yesterday, today, and it continues to happen through tomorrow. Now, this is something different. I would like everyone to chime in when you read this. Oh, so let me ask you, like, when you look at this slide, what are the thoughts that come to your mind? When I say ethical and philosophical shift while practicing SF, what do you think? What comes to your mind? What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
There's no such thing as it's okay to make mistakes.
Okay,
Learn from your mistakes, basically.
okay. What else? What else do you think when I say ethical and philosophical shift in our mindset in SF as you read this? How many, anyone here who is eclectic? I mean, you might still practice SF, but you're also eclectic. You practice something else. Anyone here who practices narrative, positive psychology? Oh, okay. Uh, okay. So I think one thing that I have found, Jason, is nothing, is that the biggest mindset shift, and I think I've always maintained it, but I kind of tell my colleagues and peers is that, and this comes from my mentor, is that we got to have absolute mastery of the modality that we use. We could use anything, but the mastery to that modality and master it so well that we never get it wrong. Not not till we get it right, but till we never can get it wrong. I think that's the mindset shift, the shift in mindset that we as clinicians need to have no matter what modality we use. And no matter what the client presents with, we have, I think that we as clinicians need to have that confidence and mastery in what we are doing, whether it's SF, whether it's CBT or EBT, whatever, that we can facilitate change with the modality that we are using and not necessarily give up on one model and go to something else when we find the going is tough. I think that's one of the biggest philosophical shift, or what do you call it, shift in mindset that I've learned as I've practiced over the years. And not taking the process for granted. Especially in SF, I've experienced it myself. There are times when I think, okay, anyway, I'm not going to talk about the problem. Anyway, I don't know what the problem is. I can just go into the session. Now, that's not a great thing to do because as a clinician, I still need to be prepared mentally, intellectually, from a process standpoint. As I said, we are still the experts in the process. So I got to know how to navigate through the process. And that will happen only if I do not take the process and my work for granted and being open to learn with curiosity. The client might say something absolutely goes above my head, but not be flustered, but ask them, okay, what do you mean by that? An ear with a curious ear. And I think the most ethical, I call it an ethical shift too, is to understand and acknowledge and understand that every trauma story has a resilience story, and our job, it's our job description. It's our best interest that we listen for the hero story. When the client tells us about their trauma story, is probably in tears, we still listen for the hero story. We are compassionate. We'll continue to be compassionate and empathetic, but we will listen for and ask about the hero story. We will ask about how the client got through it. How did they know they could get through it? I think that's the biggest. I think for me, I would say there's a huge ethical shift to look at the client as a superhero and have 2 years, both the years for the hero story. And I think the end of the session, so we all know we maintain the autonomy and agency of the client. We do not give them homework, though here in India, clients like homework. And so the only thing that I tell them is notice the presence of the desired outcome in everything they do in everyday life. I tell them that, hey, you might like to, you might want to, you might like to notice the presence of calm in your life in every turn. It could be trivial, it could be something big, but notice the presence of your desired outcome, and that's all that I tell them. I think the biggest shift is maintaining client autonomy. I'm sure if you have, I believe if you practice other modalities, then there's every chance that you tell the client to give them homework, tell them, hey, before our next session, do this, do that, or make a journal. In SF, we do not do that. We maintain, because the session itself is the intervention. The conversation itself is the intervention. We believe that as the client speaks and hears themselves speak and put out those thoughts out, as they continue, as they start to visualize their preferred future with the presence of the desired outcome, we believe as clinicians that the client is changing. Their client knows how to take it forward in their life. And I think the biggest realization for me is that we do not have control over the client's life once they step out of our office. We control the process. We can control the conversation while they are in, ask them meaningful questions, or just ask the next question if we are stuck ourselves. I think that's another realization I've had over the years. When I began, I felt bad. I felt horrible when I could not ask the next question or if I thought I wasn't asking the right question. But over years, I've learned that, okay, given what the client has told me, my job is to ask them the next question. And then as we move forward, make it more meaningful for the client, that moves them in the direction of the change that they are looking for. And when we start the next session, we start with what's been better, because we presuppose that life has taken a turn for the better. Client might still say nothing has been better. In fact, I had a client who said, second session I had, the client said, things have gone worse. My husband just told me he wants a divorce. And then I asked my client, how did you hold yourself? Despite what your husband said, how did you hold yourself? How did you not burst? And instead of bursting, how did you keep your composure? Because before she came to for therapy, before the session, the client had outbursts. That was one of the problems that they were facing as a couple. But when the client came in for the second session and the husband had already said that, hey, I want a divorce, I want separation, client told me, I held myself, and I asked her, how did you do that? And I could ask that question only because my mindset was that the client could do it, could hold themselves, could be calm in the face of a storm, had the strength and resilience to take it in their stride, not react, but probably reflect. And only if I believe that in my being, that the client could hold themselves, would I be able to ask that question to the client, how did you hold? How did you stay calm? How did you take it in your stride? What did you notice about yourself as you heard that news, or as you heard your husband speak? What did you notice about yourself that let you know that you could get through this? You could go through this, because that's a tough situation to be in. So I think that's the biggest shift yet in as we use SF in our sessions, and letting the client walk out of the office with their autonomy intact, letting them think through the conversation that they just had and bring in whatever changes, possible changes they could bring in, because change does not happen overnight. So that is that at the end. So I think the takeaway I would like all of you to go with is that let's believe in our client's hero story. You might like to. So I'm keeping your autonomy intact, and I'm going to just say you might like to believe that the client's hero story is important. We judge them by their strengths. We are all human. I am human. In sessions, I have heard myself judging, that inner voice judging or asking, or that inner voice telling me that why is the client like this? But then I stop myself in my tracks and say, if we have to judge, then let's judge them. Let's be graceful in our judgment. Let's judge them by their strength. And let the best version unfold through meaningful questions. So that is that from my side. Questions, thoughts, what you thought? Was I good, bad, ugly? Anyone who also, as James said, he's eclectic. So anyone else who is eclectic, who does not just practice SF but practices other things, what did you think? Or questions, arguments? You could tell me that this was crap. Yes, please.
I guess the level of difference, like, is there, and I'm probably answering my own question, but I'm just wondering, like, the level of difference. Is there a particular, like, do you do the first, second, and then third, go deeper, 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 or can you kind of mix things up, or is it an organic process, or?
Yeah, I think it invariably is organic, James,
Yeah.
because we are asking what are your best hopes, and the client says something. Let's say the client says, okay, I want to be happy. It's an easier example. I want to be happy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so the first level of difference is to ask, like, okay, as you start to be happy, as you start to see happiness in life, what would you start to notice different?
Okay.
The way they think. So cognition, emotion, and behavior, action.
Yeah,
What would you
yeah.
start to notice is different?
Okay.
And then we ask, what difference would that noticing make? Difference does that make to you as like that internal state of mind? So when I see happiness start to get into life, oh, the difference that would make to me, I'll start to feel confident. There's something else that is happening, right? That desired outcome leads to something else too. So it's like the goal versus the outcome.
Okay.
So I will start to feel confident. I'll start to do things differently, and the difference it will make to me is that I will become more organized, whatever the client comes up. And then I think the third level. Now you could say that the second and the third level kind of interlocks or like overlap sometimes, because the presence itself starts to change the person as a person. That transformation starts to happen. The third level of difference is when we ask, and what would that tell you about you as a person? What would that tell others about you as a person? What would your spouse start to notice? And how would they reciprocate or let you know that, hey, I'm seeing this change in you as a person? Probably you are less irritable and you're more amicable today. Whatever is that they start to notice, and they let you know. What would that tell you about yourself? I think that's the deepest level of difference, because that's the transformation.
Yeah.
That version, the change in version, the transformation that the client is looking for.
Okay. Wow.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think it yeah, thank you. Yeah, it does.
Okay.
So, hello, Vinay. This is Divya here. Hello.
Oh,
Am
okay.
I
Yeah.
on?
Yeah.
I'm not switched on my camera.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Yeah, I saw Olenka's hand go up and your voice, so I was confused. Yeah, please.
Oh, so yeah, this is this level of difference is one thing that is really very, very, very helpful. And the last slide that you put forth, where your contact is available, could you post that slide again so I can take a screenshot? Because if one has to, I'm from India as well, practicing SF.
Ah,
And if one
where are
has to
you?
reach out, how does one do that? Yeah,
Yes,
thank you. I'll just take a screenshot.
no problem. Just a moment. I will.
Well, that's it. Thank you. So, yeah,
Yeah. Where in India are
I,
you?
I am in Goa.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
That's a beautiful place.
right. May I ask you, where are you practicing out of? Which place?
I'm in Chennai.
Chennai. Right. So I am from the Goa Institute of Counseling. If you can, refer to that space. Yeah, that's where we practice. And you're mentioning your mentor quite a lot, your guru. Yeah.
It is Elliot Connie and Dr. Adam
Okay.
Clover, both in the
All
US.
right. Which is for most of us, I think. But yeah, great.
Yeah,
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Vinay.
thank you.
I want to
Yes.
ask Katie a question. When Vinay put the big question and spoke about never getting it wrong, and he explained that, and you went, "Oh, what were you thinking?" That
Oh,
looked
okay.
like
I didn't see
a
that.
bombshell.
Yeah, I love the difference. It's not about getting it right. I think it's a different trying, get it
Yeah.
right, the
Yeah.
thing. And the idea of not getting it wrong, it leaves much more experimental or adapting space. It's a different activity, and I love this. I love little stuff like this.
The subtle
So
difference between.
this is for me the takeaway so far.
Yeah. Olenka, you had your hand raised.
Yes. Awesome presentation, Vinay. But one thing that never stops, kind of giving me the goosebumps about SF is how simple it is, but not easy.
Exactly. Yes.
Because the first time I came in contact with SF, I'm like, oh, this is easy. I can teach it. That was my reaction. But I mean, this is 10 years later. I still don't think I can teach it. And there's always, you just have to keep learning.
Yeah.
You can't stop, otherwise you're gonna mess clients up.
Yeah.
And you're
I
gonna
mean,
mess yourself up.
it is important to keep practicing SF because, as you said, it is not easy. It is simple, but it is not easy because of how we have lived our life. Saturated in problem, having the problem talk to begin with. So that is again a mindset shift. And that comes with only with practice, right? Because the questions we ask is completely different from the normal conversation we would have, not just in sessions, but even with friends, with colleagues, with our family. Right? There's a problem and we talk about the problem. But the shift comes when we start to ask, okay, we have a problem. What would we like to have instead? What would we like to start noticing instead so that the problem goes away and we have a life that's more in line with what we want in life, like what we want to achieve, right? So that conversation shift happens only when we have that mindset shift. And it's tough. It's not easy. It comes with practice. Because it's so easy to fall back into the problem talk. There are times in sessions when I wanted to fall into that problem talk because it's so easy. It's easy to ask the client, okay, tell me more about the problem. And they will have they can take the entire session. But it's tough for us to ask, okay, you have the problem now, what would you like instead? And the client is stuck. The client is like, huh, okay. They take 2 minutes to think. And I love it when the client takes time to think and answer my question because then I know I've asked them something that at least they have never asked, they've never been asked. So yeah.
Do you want to unshare your screen, Vinay?
You want me to share my screen?
No, unshare it,
Oh, okay.
please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. You said unsure screen. I didn't know what you meant. So, okay.
It's good. Thank you.
So,
Thank you so much.
thank you for the opportunity, Matt. Thank you for reaching out to me. Thank you for remembering me when you had a slot open. I hope I did just